Great. So we can start. This is a webinar about the WHAAM, a web health application for ADHD monitoring. Now, everybody hears my voice and my picture? Great. Now, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's a very common disorder. It's a very common studied and diagnosed psychiatric disorder in children, and not only in children, but also in adults. Can cause, the cause in the majority of cases is unknown, and we know that affects about 6 or 7% of the children. We are not talking about cure in ADHD, we are talking about intervention. When someone has ADHD, this will affect his whole life until the end of his life. So we are not talking about cure, we are talking about intervention methods that can decrease the symptoms of the ADHD and offer a normal life to the children or to the children with ADHD or the adults. There are many symptoms related to ADHD. It's different symptoms from person to person and can be different from context to context. For example, there are other symptoms inside the house and other symptoms in school. Now, behavior observation and monitoring plays a key role in treatment plans. And until now, this observation was based on traditional paper and pen observation charts. The parents of an ADHD child, let's say during a day or a week, they keep notes about the child behavior, and with these notes, the health expert could decide the kind of intervention. When we talk about intervention, we are not mean only pharmacy intervention, but also we're talking about some non-pharmacy intervention methods. Okay, and let's come to technology. Can technology be useful in this very specific part in the behavior observation field? Of course it does. And there are many ICT solutions for monitoring the behaviors and the symptoms of ADHD. A number of attempts to replace traditional paper and pen observation charts using mobile applications. Mostly, these applications aim to help the observators save time and provide more accurate and reliable records. So if you make a quick search on the App Store or the Google Play Store, you find several of them. Some examples are the application named You Can Handle Them All, School Psychology Tools, IBAA Behavioral Assessment Application, etc. There are many applications. Now, we're going to describe the WHAAM approach, how the WHAAM application is different from these applications, from existing applications. First, and in my opinion, the most strong feature of the application is the creation of a social network. We create a social network around the child that can make observations. For example, we are very interested in observing the behaviors and the symptoms of the child, not only in one context, but in different contexts. Not only in school, for example, not only in home, but at school, at home, at the gym, and the English class, everywhere. Now, how we can achieve this? By creating a social network of observators. Each observator has its own mobile application, its own device, smartphone or tablet, and can make observations for a specific child. The second is what I mentioned before. The context is very important to observe the child or the adult. I'm saying always child. The person. It's very important to observe in different contexts because there are different behaviors, different actions that leads to this behavior, etc. We can take, we see a picture of, for an example, social network from parents. The labels are in Greek. I'm sorry for this. I'm going to edit this at the end of the presentations. Parents, teachers, relatives who spend, health experts. We are interested on creating a social network by putting persons that spend time with the child. For example, a teacher in the school spends time with the child. So it can be very easy to pick up the phone, the smartphone, and make a, let's say, a 5-minute observation for the child. If 10 persons make one observation for 5 minutes each, there are 50 minutes of observation, which is very, very important and useful information and very accurate information. Compare this to the traditional pen and paper methods. Now, the virtual network is composed of people who have a role in the care of the child and spends time, as I mentioned before, with ADHD and their main life context. For instance, home and schools. In the social network, we share the knowledge and relevant information about the child behaviors in different contexts. Now, let's going to describe the architecture of the WHAAM application. There is a web application, you can see it on the left side, and there is a mobile application. The basic, let's say, workflow can be described in four different steps. The first step is to identify the relevant behavior. The relevant behavior of the child will need to be evaluated while taking note of the social and life context. For example, we have to choose that a specific behavior occurs when the child is at home, but also occurs when the child is at school, and also occurs when the child is in English class, etc. The behavior needs to be clearly identified and in an understandable way. That's why in the WHAAM application we created a controlled vocabulary, a vocabulary that contains the titles of the behaviors, and the end user can select among them the behavior or the behaviors that needs. Of course, behaviors that are out of this vocabulary can be added by the user. It's a kind of a folksonomy function. The second step is the observation of the behavior. When we are observing the behavior, we need to identify how often the behavior happens, the frequency of the behavior, how long the behavior lasts. This is the duration of the behavior, and where this behavior occurs and observed, for example, in school, in home, somewhere else. The third step, is the planning of an intervention. The planning can be held with the guidance of a health professional. And this is something that we strongly recommend, that inside the social network around the child, to be a health professional. Parents and teachers can also contribute to this, to the development of the plan. The WHAAM application helps in the key activities of observing, recording the occurred behaviors, and the monitoring of the strategies during this plan of intervention. The last step is to verify the results. Let's say that we planned our observations, we have our observation plan finished. The last step is to verify the results. The WHAAM application can support and enhance the planned interventions using the benefits of, let's say, graph charts, some statistics, some analytics that are produced automatically by the application and can support and summarize these main results of the observation. The WHAAM application will also produce some synthetic indices and help create some text reports. These text reports can be help the health professional to decide if our intervention plan succeeded or not. So let's take a look in the actual applications. As I said before, there are two parts of the application. There is a web application that you can find in this specific URL, and there is a mobile application. We're going to describe the web application first to see how it works in combination with a mobile application. The first you need is to create an account. You go straight to this URL, app.whaamproject.eu, and create an account. It's free, it's fast, it's easy. Now, after this, after the creation of the account, we have to add our children. We have to create our children list. You can see an example of a children that added here with some information. We are not, when creating a child, we are not typing the real name of the child. We are using nicknames. This is a way to protect the personal data of the child, because in the very, let's say, in a case that you lost your password, if someone else finds this password, even if he will access your account, it will not understand who is the child. It cannot be connected, the specific real life child, with the nickname. So it's a kind of protection for the children of the application. We have, when creating our children list, we have to add some information related to our child. For example, the diagnosis, the meditations, the school information, its age, etc. We can, this is not, all these fields are not mandatory. It's better to enter them because other users in our social network will have a more, let's say, complete picture of the status of the child. Okay, we can see in this screen the creation of the social network. We just add users to the social network of the specific only child by we invite them by entering their email, and the system automatically sends an email to each user and invites him to this specific social network. Let's go to the behaviors now. We have our child. We want to add some relevant behaviors. For example, in this child, the Dustin 23, we added 2 relevant behaviors: pulling adults, peers, parents, siblings, etc., being restlessness. These behaviors are very child-specific, and you can see, except this, you can see a description, a very short description here, and you also can see other metadata here. For example, who created the behavior is the same person that created the child record. Each behavior, we can add as many as we wish, of course. Each behavior have its own set of assessments. We can see it if we click here. These are the assessments. The assessments are of 2 types: baseline assessments and intervention. The baseline is usually before any intervention plan. After or during an intervention plan, we're talking about intervention assessment. So in each assessment, we have to define the characteristic that we are going to observe. For example, we can observe the frequency of the specific behavior, the duration of the specific behavior, and we also can set some other useful information about the context, the place, or for example, persons who are in the same place with the observed child, and all this information can help the health professional to understand the occurring of the behavior. Sorry about this. Let's go to the presentation. Now, after all this, we have set up our child list, our children list. We have set up our network, our social network for each of these childs, and we also set up the behaviors for each child and the assessment for each behavior of the child. Now, let's go to the mobile application. The actual observations Okay, sorry. Let's go to the mobile application. The actual observation is, it can be done using the mobile application. We are going to set at the end where you can find the mobile application. This is the main screen. You can log in with the same credentials as the web application. And this is the main screen that displays the children list. Clicking on a child, for example, here, we can see more detailed information about the specific child. For example, all this data, the siblings, the diagnosis, the medication, all this data are the data that the user previously entered in the web application. If all people in the social network of the specific child can see the same information, except if you don't want someone to see this information, you just don't enter it in the web application. Because if you enter it, the whole social network will see it. Now, this is the child network, an example of the child network. We can, if there are usually there are more than one people in the network, so you can see them all, and you can also see the role of each person. For example, if it's a relative or a teacher or something else. Now, let's go to the behavior information. You can see for each child the attached behaviors of the child. So you can get some basic information here, the behavior name, the description, some other settings, the place. So, and if you click to the assessments of the behavior, you are now seeing the specific assessment that you previously defined on the web application for the specific behavior. You can see what type of assessment it is. Is it a duration or a frequency observation? The end date. For example, by clicking this, you can make a new observation. By clicking this, you can make a new ABC dataset to upload to the server. An ABC dataset, it's a set of information related with the place, and some other questions related to the specific behavior and to the specific observation. You can also see some general assessment information here. So, if I click on the specific assessment, now this is the assessment information I told you before. So, let's go to the exact observation. Let's say that I have behavior, I have an assessment, and I click Start Observation. This is the button. This is the list button here, New Observation. When you are clicking New Observation, a new observation starts. This is a timer that counts from the time you have specified in the web application to 0. And by clicking on this button, you can add, for example, occurrences of the behavior. If this is a frequency behavior, which is this example that we see right now. If this is every time you click on this button, a new item on this list displayed. If this is not a frequency observation, but is a duration observation, you click this button one to start observing, to start recording, let's say, the behavior, and the second time you click this button, it stops the recording. I don't know if I have an example. Yes, I have an example. You press the button, so this is a duration observation, as you can see here. You press the button, the system starts record the specific behavior. When you click again the button, it stops this specific session, but until the timer ends, you can also click again the button when the behavior occurs, etc. And you can see here for each item of the list when the observation started and when it finished. So, this is the ABC dataset. There are some questions that you can answer and send the relevant information to the system. For example, when the specific behavior occurred, where the child, he or she was, what she was doing, was anybody else there, yes or no? You complete all this and sends the information to the user. If something goes wrong with your observation, you always have the abort function at the bottom right of the application, but also you can decide at the end whether you want to send or not send the data to the server. Remember, if you press here the delete data, this is the same as no observation. If you want to save the data for the specific observation, you click to save data, and the whole observation will be added to the database. So you can cancel the observation anytime you wish, even during the observation or at the end of the observation. But once you click the save data button, the observation is the application sends the data of the observation to the server, and you cannot delete anymore. So now, based on all this data that collected from the users of the social network, the web application of the WHAAM creates some statistics and some charts. We can see, let me show you. We can see, for example, some example statistics here. Have in mind that these statistics are for one specific behavior. This is the title of the behavior that we are observing. Often slow to get ready for school. Now, there is a pointer here that can identify, for example, if we have an intervention plan for this specific behavior. This is a measure to identify if our observation plan succeeded or not. Usually, we want the effect size to be not close to 0 to have, let's say, succeed for this specific intervention. It's either to the left or to the right. It depends really to what behavior we are observed. These statistics and some others that the application produces automatically can be shown to the expert, to the health professional, and decide whether our observation succeeded or not. This is a huge difference between the traditional pen and paper chart and the statistics, which are the statistics are very accurate, are based on the observations not only by one person but also by all persons participating on the child's network. So all this data and these statistics are very accurate and can make a huge difference on the information that we give to the health professional to decide if our plan succeeded or not. This is the specific, I don't know how to call this. It shows the effect size of our intervention to the specific behavior. We want a big number, not close to 0. Close to 0 means that our intervention plan it was not very successful. So you can already download the presentation, the mobile application, sorry, on Google Play if you hit an Android device. Coming soon to the App Store. I believe in 1 or 2 weeks there will be on the App Store. Something very important for me is that the mobile application, the WHAAM mobile application is open source, but it's not only open source, but is also under MIT license. That means that the code is freely available on GitHub and you can download it, change it, give it again, sell it or do anything you wish. The evaluation, an initial evaluation will be based on the system usability score, the SUS system. Generally, the average SUS score is 68, and there is a set of score thresholds available, which corresponds to qualitative categories. We are aiming for an SUS score above 68. Also, we are preparing some expert reviews based on Nielsen's general principles for interaction design to be used for the evaluation of the application. You can visiting our site for the latest news, or even better, follow us in Twitter on the Twitter account of the WHAAM project. So this was a presentation, a quick presentation for the WHAAM application for me. If you want any questions, I'm going to unmute you right now. So if you want to ask anything, you can raise your hand, and I will give you, as presented, the microphone, the voice. If we don't have any questions, do we? Okay. Great. No questions from Mikel's side. Mikel, are you with Monica or no? This goes for Monica too. I see also Antonella inside. Antonella, any questions? The whole webinar is already recorded. Mikel, I'm saying, okay, Monica answered, no questions until now. The whole webinar is recorded, and once the video become available, I believe it takes some hours to become available, so we will send to the website administrator to upload it. If we don't have any other questions, thanks very much for listening. We'll keep in touch. Bye from me.